Okay, I'll start a timer. Okay, I'm Chelsea Chalk.
And I'm Susan Bice.
Okay, so we are doing our conclusion to talk about the Amazing Grace movie. So the first question is, what doctrine in Wilbert's heart drove him to advocate? Well, the first part of the first question. So, the doctrine that was in his heart to me was that all people are God's children and all people are created equal. I feel like that's what really drove his desire to help free the slaves and help abolish the slave trade.
Yeah, I agree. We've got some really bad feedback. I just hear my voice talking. Can you try to mute your mic just for a second, see if that helps? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, it's not doing it now. Never mind. It's not doing it now. I apologize. So I agree that it was his faith in God that really motivated him to do that. And also, I think he felt it was his divine calling from God to be able to end those inhumane acts against the slaves. One quote that I got from the movie that talked about this, he said, "God Almighty has set before me two great objects, the suppression of the slave trade and the reformation of society." So he really did feel like it was his mission in life to be able to do that. So the second part of that question is, do you want me just to read? Maybe we could go back reading back and forth.
Okay.
Is that all right? Why is the doctrine of the family so important to have in your heart? To be passionate and persistent. So I'll just go ahead and take that part first. I said having the doctrine of the family deeply embedded in our hearts is important because when you're fighting for a cause, you really do have to feel passionate about the principles that you're defending. Because when the obstacles get really hard and start to, block or hinder your progress, then you'll get discouraged if you really don't have a passion for it. So
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I kind of second what you say, but I feel like along with passion, I feel like passion drives us to do the research and to have the great knowledge and kind of like you said, push through the hard times and keep going even though you'll come to obstacles, kind of like Wilbert he advocated for this for like 15 or 20 years, right? And it didn't go through until the 15 or 20 years after, and he came to a lot of obstacles and a lot of opposition and a lot of people telling him, but it was because of his passion and his wife's passion that she actually got from him, right? Got from him when she was younger, that really drove him to accomplish what he intended to. And if it wasn't for that passion that he had when he was younger, that he gave to his wife, that she brought back to him, it's kind of like a cycle. But if it wasn't for that initial passion, he probably never would have accomplished what he initially wanted to, because he probably wouldn't have gotten back into advocating.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Okay, so the next one is, how did Wilbert employ a theoretical approach to become a more effective advocate? Identify at least one thing in each system and be specific. Okay, I wrote out most of them. Okay, so I said for the micro system, he advocated to his friends and his family and his community, and his community was his wife at one point, which eventually became his family, right? And the prime minister, which was his friend, that they advocated for this together, and he helped change people's minds, right, just by advocating in the community. Should we go through just each system?
Do you want to go back and forth with each one? And then we
Yeah,
don't go all the way back to the beginning again.
yeah, I like that idea.
Okay. Were you finished with yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I agree, family, friends. But one thing I thought of was that even in his microsystem also existed maybe even some of his enemies in Parliament, because those were his close associates, when he was trying to advocate for change. So he was influenced by them and they were influenced by him. And yeah, he sought advice from his friend, that former slave ship captain that, um, felt a lot of regret over his actions. And also Thomas Clarkson, that the abolitionist that was really passionate about everything, had a really big effect on him. So
Yeah.
that's who I included in the microsystem. What about the mesosystem? What did you say on that one?
Let me look at my. Okay, so I like talked about how he had, I remember like him having dinner parties where he would, have his friends and the community, and other people there, like when they had the one African American or African guy who was a slave, where they like showed them the shackles and the brand and stuff. So I said the dinner parties, and then again, like meeting his wife was an example. And then I talked about the boat experience a little bit when he took the members of parliament, which were kind of like the enemies, like you said, and he took them to that boat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's actually a good example. But,
No, I agree. I think it's using his, yeah, I agree. I do. And also, I was thinking about his friend, the prime minister,
yeah.
because he was sort of a middle man in a way. Wilbur was friends with him, and then prime minister could be more influential in parliament. So maybe it was kind of a triangle in that way. That was a kind of a hard one to pinpoint, but anyway,
Yeah.
one idea I had that was different from yours.
No, that's good. I guess I like kind of thought that like when he did the boat experience, like I don't know if this is true, but I think of it as like they didn't have like, mass media at that time. Like they may have had some printed media, which I guess like the ex-slave or that African guy, I don't remember his name, his book could have been a good example of that as well.
Oh,
But
true.
I don't know. I guess it's like a way that he could give information without being able to like, do a news report on TV or something. I don't know.
Right. No, I can see how that would be true, having an influence on them in that way.
Yeah. Okay, so for the exosystem, so I just talked a lot about, the parliament that was kind of, I guess, the government. I don't like I guess was it his like county's government or state government? I'm not really sure how that works, but because that's where he got a lot of his supporters. Because like at the beginning, it was pretty equal, like people sitting on both sides, and then towards the end, like there was like 10 people on the opposing side, and he changed so many people's minds because like the things that he said were so clever and kind of funny that people like really listened to him. So that was really my biggest example from that.
Yeah, I don't, maybe I don't have a clear understanding totally yet of the exosystem, because I know that it's supposed to be the link between the context where the person has no active role and the context where he's actively participating. There's a link there somewhere. So I guess I could be totally wrong on this, but the way I thought of it was, he was kind of torn between a career in politics and his life devoted to the spiritual. And so I thought the link between those two would have been his friend, the slave trade captain, that
Yeah.
because he was writing about all of his accounts as a slaver, and he's the one who kind of told and encouraged Wilberforce when he was wavering back and forth that he should move forward and go ahead and serve in Parliament because he could have a good influence there. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
No, I think I might have been wrong.
no, I don't really understand it. I even wrote it in my notes. I'm like, this is a hard one for me to identify because it's just kind of confusing sometimes how to figure out what the exosystem, who would be involved in that specifically.
Yeah.
But I think his wife was also kind of that link that helped push him, between being not involved and then being actively involved.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay. Is it my turn to do the question?
It doesn't matter. We can keep going this way. Fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so the macro system. I kind of talked about, well, these are like the subcultures, I guess, right? So I guess the main one that stuck out to me was religion. Because I don't know, it almost seemed like when you want to devote yourself to religion in his culture, it meant like becoming a monk or, a priest or living, a life of, I don't know what they call it, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, like, that's why he was struggling with that, was because he felt like to devote his life to religion and to God, that's what he had to do. But I mean, really, he did devote his life to the work of the Lord, but he did it in a different way by advocating for mankind and trying to change. And I guess like political ideology as well. I'm just kind of looking at the examples that are in the textbook, but he changed a lot of people's minds politically.
Yeah, I said some similar things. I said that the macro system, Wilbur's macro system, was his culture of wealth and status. He inherited his wealth from his father when he died, and then his status in Parliament. Even though he was looked down upon by the others for his religious convictions, he still had the status of an elected official, and he was really considered a great orator among his peers in the Parliament. And so his culture and his status allowed him to have that voice and an audience where he could be able to speak up and advocate for change. So that's what I wrote for macro system.
That's a good one. Okay. So next question is, how did Wilbur and his fellow advocates do and share their research? What evidence did they provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence? So kind of how, sorry.
Did we do chronosystem?
What?
Did we do chronosystem? Is that one we have to do? Or is that one of them?
Yeah, no, sorry, maybe, I think it is.
If it's not listed in the textbook.
Yeah. No, it is in the textbook.
Do you want me to tell you what I wrote?
Yeah.
I said that Wilbur's chronosystem included the transitions and the changes that occurred over the years of his life. So it's kind of about transitioning, the systems that evolve over time. And so I said it was the changes that occurred over all the years that he was involved in Parliament. He had health problems and the way that others may have viewed him over time. Because I think in the beginning, he was really viewed by most members of Parliament as a radical and an idealist and a troublemaker. And then over the years of his advocacy and attempts to win over the minds and hearts of the others who were involved in this, in the end, some of those same individuals saw him as a person of conviction who really made a difference. And so their opinions of him changed over time. So specifically, I was thinking of that scene where I can't remember the guy's name, but he was like a important person in Parliament, some kind of a duke or something, and he said some sort of a French phrase or something, noblesse oblige, which means I'm obliged to acknowledge an exceptional combat. So he kind of gave Wilbur a pat on the back, so to speak. You know, like, you did a good job. So anyway, changed minds, I think.
I agree with you on that, and I feel like the person that I think about, maybe it was the same guy, I don't remember, but he was an older man who also had a big sway in Parliament, and he like got up and signed the petition and then sat on the other side. Yeah. And that was like a big deal to everyone. Was that the same guy?
It was a different one from the one I'm talking about, but that was Albus Dumbledore. Did you notice? There were a lot of actors in this movie that I recognized.
Oh, I didn't know. I noticed Sherlock, but I didn't notice that was Albus Dumbledore. That's so funny. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Sorry.
Okay. Now we can do that one you were getting ready to read, number 3.
Okay, so how did they do and share their research? So I think like talking to his preacher who used to work on the ship, I feel like kind of is where he got his initial information and research from him. And then when that ex-slave and his friend came and they like showed him the shackles, and when he like built that box of the dimensions that the slaves would be in the ship, and he like popped out of the box. I mean, that was like one way of him doing research. And then also the boat experience, like obviously he probably went there to look at it before. And so he took all of that info. I feel like that was like the most convincing research that he had, at least to me, that seemed like it, because it was tangible. Like you could see it, and it could help you really visualize like what these slaves were going through. And so just when they showed people that, and the ex-slave wrote his book, and then the preacher was writing a book as well with all of the information, and especially when they took people to the boat and he like had them uncover their noses so they could smell, the smell of death. I feel like that was really convincing to other people.
Yeah, he did do a lot of visual illustrations to help prove his point. But I also read that he collected statistics and evidence of the mistreatment. He had, and he even had like mortality rates, like how many people died, how many slaves died along the way. And then other abolitionists who worked with him, they raised public awareness with pamphlets and books and rallies and petitions. And they collected those signatures, remember, on that petition that he rolled out in the middle of the of Parliament, and showing that the people, there were a lot of people who supported the idea of doing away with the slave trade. So he tried to show it, the mistreatment of the slaves, on a more human and emotional level, I think. So
yeah, I totally agree. Okay, that's that whole question.
What time are we at? Just curious.
We're at 20 minutes, so we're doing pretty good.
We're about.
Did I lose you? Oh, Susan. Hello. Susan?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You froze, sorry.
Yeah, you did too. You're like really fuzzy. I hope we don't lose connection.
I know, I hope not. That would really be a bummer. Okay.
So number 4.
We're on number 4?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start it again. Okay, how does the film portray the importance of working together as a group? what has family advocacy group work taught you? So, with all the people that he had, like A, was able to get a lot more information, and B, he was able to reach a lot more people. And he was able to have a bigger influence because of the people that he had supporting him, like the prime minister, and when that old guy, I don't remember his name, Albus Dumbledore, came onto his side. Like that had a big impact on the other people, because they were like, wait, like these people, have a lot more power and they're believing him. So like, what does that, mean for me? And then as for how this class, this group work has taught me the importance of it, like I think about our Facebook page, like again, because, all four of us were working on it, all four of us have, hundreds of completely different friends, like we were able to reach thousands of people, probably like 2,000 people, just because we worked as a group. But if we were to do it individually, we wouldn't have been able to reach that many people.
That's a great example, Chelsea. That's a really good example. Yeah, were you finished?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just echo what you said. Working in a group always, well, as Wilberforce's groups, it seems like they had little meetings all the time. They met together often to discuss, kind of like family councils, or whatever. So you discuss how your progress is going, and it kind of catches everybody up so that they're more effective. And so I guess that's what it's taught me, that family advocacy should be used in the same way. Yet uniting other people who have the same ideas and feelings that you do. It's, in order to make a change, it's really essential that you reach out to people who feel the same way that you do. And so, yeah, that's how I feel too.
Yeah, and an example that just came to mind when you said family meetings, it made me think of like how people have talked about when the first presidency meets. Like they all really love each other, but they can like debate about topics, and they can come together and make things greater, because they do have, some different views on a few things, but obviously they come to a conclusion at some point, and it makes the idea greater than it even was at the beginning. So I feel like that is a really big benefit when you were talking about their meetings. Like they're able to all share their feelings and their ideas and come out greater than if they were just an individual.
I agree, totally. Okay, number 5.
Do you want to take that one or read that one?
Okay. It says, what parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni in Alma 46? What is a Christian and a professional family advocate, and how did Wilbur exemplify that? And how can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices? So I said that I think the parallels between Wilbur and Captain Moroni are that they had a strong belief that they needed to follow the example of the Savior, and their desires were for the benefit and the freedom of the people. And they were both really bold in their efforts to defend the principles that they believed in order to protect those freedoms.
I said almost the exact same thing.
Should we just go back and forth on those? Or do you want to? Okay.
I just basically said like the exact same things that you said. Like they were both there for doing the Lord's work and for the betterment of others, and they were strong, and they had a strong faith in the Lord that He would back them up.
Yeah. So the second part of that, a Christian and a professional family advocate are individuals who they really are required to be bold, and at the same time, each one has to display Christ-like attributes towards those that we don't agree with. And we have to be focused on being on the offense rather than the defense when it comes to communicating with others. And it's important to convey our message in ways that aren't perceived as hateful or judgmental. I think both Christians and advocates have to do that in order to be effective. And we should accept and love others whose actions might be in contrast with our own beliefs. Sometimes that's hard. We can disagree, but we should always love the person in spite of how we feel about their behaviors. So that's all I have on that one.
Yeah, I feel like as a Christian, like we have, especially as a Christian and a professional advocate, like we have more of a responsibility and an obligation to advocate, especially, you know, boldly and loudly, because we do have that extra knowledge of faith and of God that other people don't. And so I feel like we have more responsibility, and it allows us to really understand. And also, like, we have, and I agree, like, I'm sure Heavenly Father supports, you know, all of the pro-family advocates out there, but especially those who are members of the church or Christian who have a relationship with them. Like, He's going to give us some extra support to help us through and help us get to people that other people might not get to. And so I feel like having the Spirit with us is definitely a strong thing that comes from that. And I agree with you, just loving others and being kind. I feel like, you know, the quote, like, kill them with your kindness. I feel like if people, you know, if we're rude to people and advocating, they're going to see us as being hypocrites. Like, even if they're being rude to us, like, if we, you know, display the fact that we are Christian and then we are rude back, like, they're going to be like, okay, well, you're being a hypocrite. I thought you were a Christian, you know? And so, kind of like I said, like, we have a different obligation and a different responsibility because we are members of the church. And I feel like we can just get through so much. We can soften others' hearts when we are kind and we're loving. And I feel like an example that I thought of is like the whole gay marriage thing. And I don't necessarily get frustrated at the gay people. Like, I know multiple gay people that I love, but it's just like redefining marriage and what can come of making gay marriage legal. It's not, and so, and like for children. And so that is what it gets me frustrated, and it's hard not to get frustrated, especially towards like other members of the church who are in support of gay marriage and who advocate for gay marriage after being members of the church. Like, that is really frustrating for me, and it's hard not to get mad. And so I feel like that is a perfect example of when I need to show kindness and love, and to other people. And, you know, I need to be loud, but I need to be kind.
Yeah, it's hard to do. It really is. Being Christ-like is hard.
Yeah. Because if you're so passionate about something, it just makes you so emotional. But
you know, it's true that I think, well, and I've heard this throughout this semester, you know, the minute that you get angry, the Spirit can't dwell with you anyway. So if you're angry, then you're not really going to have much influence without the Spirit. So
yeah. And another quote was like, the first person to get angry loses, right?
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, I think that was from this class. Sometimes I like get my classes mixed up. Okay, so the next question is, Marcia Barlow spoke on persuasive speaking and writing. Did Wilbert and others exemplify any of Marcia's ideas, and how so? I feel like he really used the story of, is it me, us, and them, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but I feel like he really used the story of that in his advocating, because especially when he was like using all the examples of what the slaves were like, even like having that ex-slave there, even when he was like sitting up at the top. I don't know if you remember that part, but just having him there and using his research, and when they were writing the books and stuff, I feel like that really shows the story of me, us, and them, especially in like giving his own experiences and how the community can help, and like when he would advocate like what it would be like to abolish slavery and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. That's pretty much what I said too, that he was just able to tell the stories of the slaves in a way that encouraged and instilled sympathy in the people who were listening. And I think that's when you're able to affect other people emotionally on an emotional level, that's when you're able to really make effective change. And I think that was his gift, being able to tell, stories and situations in a way that helped people feel sympathy for the slaves.
Yeah, I also felt like the petition had a big impact on Parliament when he brought the petition. Like that was more, I think, the us part of it, like, showing like it's not just me who thinks this, like I'm not crazy. Like there's thousands of people who have signed this, who back me up and agree. Like we think that we can come together and make this happen.
That's excellent. That's an excellent example.
Okay, next question. What role did the government policy and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? Did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? Answer all the questions. Okay. So government and policy obviously played a huge role because he was, arguing in Parliament, it seemed like all the time. They met. I don't know how often they actually met, but it seemed like it was very frequent. And, eventually it did become a bill and it was passed on to the king. So that is part of the policy. And then religious freedom, I mean, it was his religion that really brought him to advocate for this. And I didn't remember exactly, but it seemed like to me that he talked about God and religion a lot more than we probably would nowadays. And that is because of religious freedom. And most people, or more people back then, were probably religious than they are now. Do you want to answer that question, the first one?
Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much said the same things, but yeah, I just kind of told the story what you just said about how it's, he did everything he did was in the government, involved in the government, and trying to change policy. And I'm just going to skip over that because you've already said that. So I said religious freedom was one of Wilbur's main motivations to free the slaves. He said, this is a quote from the movie, he said, "There is a principle above everything that is political. And when I reflect on the command that says, 'Thou shalt do no murder,' believing the authority to be divine, how can I dare set up any reasonings of my own against it? And sir, when we think of eternity and the future consequences of all human conduct, what is there in this life which should make any man contradict the principles of his own conscience, the principles of justice, the laws of religion, and of God?" So it was all about following God's laws and his attitudes toward humankind. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? I didn't really know the answer to this one. Do you want to take it?
Well, I didn't actually write anything down for that one. I just thought that, well, pro-family, not pro-slave family, apparently, at the time. But, and I don't know, did you even really see any references to pro-family in the movie?
I didn't, and that's kind of why I didn't know what to say. I didn't really answer it because I didn't see any like specific examples that were pro-family, but I guess their political system, I don't know. That's a hard question. I guess.
I mean, unless you want to research the England's, policies back then more thoroughly, I don't know. I don't know what that answer would be.
say yes. Comparing to, the political systems of the current day. So I'm just gonna go.
For sure.
Yeah, because yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
We're at
Number 8.
4 minutes. Okay. Okay. Do you feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well? How did you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christofferson spoke of?
You want me to start?
Yeah, if you want to.
I think that he was an excellent example of someone who used his time well on Earth. It seemed like, of course, it was a movie, so we didn't get to see all the things that he did, other than defend this this bill that he wanted to pass. But it seemed like his sole motivation, once he was converted, and made the decision that he wanted to serve God, it's pretty much he gave his whole life for it. He showed elements of consecration as he used his freedom of choice to have a life dedicated to the service of others. These are some of the things that Elder Christofferson said in his talk, that a person who has a consecrated life uses his freedom of choice to live a life dedicated to the service of others. And I think Wilbur certainly did that, because he knew that he would find his greatest joy by doing that. So I said that the elements that Elder Christofferson talked about were purity, and Wilbur repented of his former life or his idleness. He decided that he wanted to live a life to serve God, and so he repented and left his idleness behind. The element of work. Elder Christofferson said, a consecrated life is filled with work, sometimes repetitive, sometimes menial, sometimes unappreciated, but always work that improves, orders, sustains, lifts, ministers, and aspires. So I think he lived all of those principles throughout his life. And the final one is, well, not the final one, but service. Elder Christofferson said, those who quietly and thoughtfully go about doing good offer a model of consecration. I'm sorry, this is a really long answer.
No, it's
but
okay.
Wilbur exemplified service as he desired to do good for the benefit of others. And it wasn't just for his own political advancement or for, the recognition of it in public. He really had a desire, a motivation because of his love for people and the love for God. So, and the last one is integrity. That's what Elder Christofferson said is one of the elements of consecration. They don't seek to take the advantage of others, but they will turn the other cheek. And if required to deliver a coat, will give the cloak also. So I think Wilbur exemplified patience and commitment to that cause.
Yeah,
So
no, I totally agree with everything that you said. Like he definitely devoted his life to making, the world a better place for all of mankind by abolishing slavery and bringing value and equality to the lives of men. So I would say that he definitely spent his time here on Earth well. He made a difference, and he advocated and did the Lord's work, and he devoted his life to the work of the Lord. And again, like the things that you talked about with agency, like or having his freedom of choice, like he decided to, and he decided to forego his choice of becoming a monk and dedicate his life to doing this. Purity, kind of like you talked about, he repented for his sins, and I feel like the things that he advocated for and the things he talked about were pure. Like he didn't try to lie to make his points or things like that. He wasn't trying to go against or going under the system or finding loopholes or anything like that. Again, he worked really hard, kind of like you said, and even though he was continuously doing the same thing, continuously advocating for the same thing, and he was shut down a lot of the times, he continued to work hard in service. Like, his entire purpose was service. He was there to serve the slaves and give them freedom and equality so that they could live the life that they deserved. And again, with integrity, I feel like that's kind of obviously, like, that same purpose shows his integrity in the things that he did.
I agree.
Okay, the next question is, any other profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy? I feel like the biggest thing that I got was just never give up, never stop trying, because I mean, I know for a fact that we are going to face so much opposition in advocating for the family. And I know that most likely we're not going to win because, I mean, obviously, like, the second coming is going to happen. The world is going to get worse, and we know that. And so, to me, that kind of means we aren't going to win before the second coming. But that doesn't mean we don't try. It doesn't mean we don't stop working for it. It doesn't mean just because we can't change the government and we can't change the policies all the time. Maybe we can sometimes, but we can change people's minds and we can change people's hearts, and that is what is going to have a lasting eternal perspective, or a lasting eternal cause or effect. Sorry. Anyway.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that, yeah, I think that we tend to maybe, I do the same thing. I start, you know, we look long term and we know what's coming. So it's kind of hard not to get discouraged and think, well, what difference are we going to make anyway? But even if we only make a difference within our own families, you know, in our own little world where we can live in denial for a while, um, um, I agree with you. And I said the exact same thing, that it teaches us to never give up, even when it gets hard. So, yeah.
Okay. Next question. What was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of this semester, and how has it changed? I feel like, you know, I understood, like, what we needed to do as far as family goes, like being sealed in the temple, you know, procreate, and I knew that we needed to do those things to have eternal life. But I guess I didn't really understand the importance of advocating for the family principles, not just living them, but supporting them publicly and advocating for them and teaching them to our children and to, you know, our people who don't have the same knowledge, like our non-member friends, and things like that. And I guess I didn't really understand how living these things can advocate for it. I mean, like, for example, just like when I post, you know, my wedding pictures on Facebook or talk about my testimony of eternal marriage or something like that, like, I guess I never really understood the impact that that can have on society. It's not just me expressing my feelings for myself. Like, people can read that and it could, you know, change their heart, change their mind about anything. And with social media, like, once you post something on social media, it's really no longer yours, and it could reach thousands and thousands of people, and you could never know. And so I guess I didn't really understand the importance of advocating it, and I didn't understand the importance of your living it as an example to others.
Yeah, I agree. Um, that I just said that throughout this semester, I've also gained a better understanding of the threats that are out there against the family. What things that maybe I knew about, but I didn't really know how bad it was in my own little, you know, world of denial here. And so, and I also think it's taught me the importance of being more open-minded and more maybe embracing a larger circle of people, especially who are religious. Maybe they aren't members of the church, but I think there are a lot of good Christian people in the world, in the, in our country, that we should come together with, so that we'll have a louder voice, to help make change. Because I know that using Christ-like patterns will be the best approach. So we have to be able to do that with other people who can share our beliefs and have the Spirit with us to be able to make a change.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so the last question. Picture your spouse and children, current or future, and write down some thoughts about how they will benefit from you taking this class. I feel like, again, like, since I've gained the importance of advocating and teaching, and I also, like you said, gaining or knowing all of the threats. I feel like that is going to have such a benefit when I'm raising my children, is being aware of what's going on, being aware of what could be a threat to my child, being aware of what policies are happening, what are, or what policies are being made, things like that. Just knowing what's going to happen, because it always is going to affect, especially our children and even our spouses, but I feel like especially our children, it's going to affect them the most. And so I feel like it will help me to protect them and help them to build testimonies of it, because I can teach them the importance of the family and, teach them things against these threats from a young age, so that they can, learn to believe the same things that I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that will be, generational. They'll be able to share it with their families as well, if we're here that long on this earth.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking that, seriously, I have really never, in any semester prior to this one, shared so many thoughts and principles with my family that I've learned in a class. This class has, it's been a really good opportunity to be able to share things, because I have adult grown children. I have 2 grandchildren now. And so it's good for me to be able to share it with my children, who can, share it with their children now. And I want them to know and understand the threats that we face, and just like you said, so that they'll be prepared for the future as well. And I think as I try to show an example of, strength and courage in the face of all of these threats, then that it'll help them have an understanding of the importance of it as well. And to be sure that I'm well educated and stay informed of the things that are going on around me, even after this class is over. So anyway, that's what I've learned this semester. And I've learned a lot from you and our other group members as well.
Yeah, me too. I totally agree with that. Okay, I'm going to stop it. We're at 48 minutes.
Perfect.